Today, I want to talk about how to distinguish yourself as an AI artist specifically, because AI in particular makes it easier than ever for people to copy the work of others, or at least very closely mimic. AI makes it very easy to copy the work of others and pass it off as your own. And for that reason, it's a very unique space to try and distinguish yourself in. It's hard to know what to give away and what not to give away because constantly I am asked how I make certain videos. And I used to be really enthusiastic about sharing my process just openly to whoever asked about it. I didn't want to gatekeep anything. I was strictly against the whole concept of gatekeeping tools and processes. And I really truly wish I could still say that that was the case, but I am now a different person than I was then. And what I mean is that I have a ton of copycats, which is very flattering in its own right. Very flattering, but also who's to say that it's not diluting the algorithm and limiting my reach on social media? You feel me? So it's kind of hard to measure like how damaging it is when other accounts are mimicking your work and in some cases flat out reposting it without credit. There's been a lot of that out there. And so since that has been the case, I've really started to rethink what I choose to give out as far as my process, the tools that I use. But then it's like the flip side is people start to call you a gatekeeper. And it's like they don't exactly understand your backstory and why you're doing what you're doing. Like, I didn't just become a gatekeeper in a vacuum. Anyways, I guess the point that I want to make here is that as an AI artist, you really have to be in control of, well, there's not much you can be in control of because it's easier than ever to see a works that you like and just replicate it. I mean, you could do something as simple as screenshotting something and running it through ChatGPT and asking it to come up with a prompt to create the same thing, and it will do it. And depending on the tools that you're using, you could come up with the work that looks exactly the same or almost the same. And this is not going to slow down. It's only going to be easier and easier to copy the work of others. And so in some sense, maybe it's a losing battle to try and resist it. I wrestle with this a lot because I think inevitably people will be completely able to reproduce whatever work they want in the future, in the near future. And so why waste my time guarding my processes and my tools? I think the one thing I do feel a little better about guarding are my prompts, the actual prompts themselves, because I do work very hard on writing the perfect prompt and experimenting with different ones and seeing what works and what doesn't. So I feel like I might be compromising by showing off the tools and workflows to some degree, but also concealing the prompts that are ultimately used in those workflows. That's kind of where I've arrived in my head as of today. It's kind of a inner battle between two different people. One person wants to share openly and help others, but the other person sees the ramifications of that and how it has affected my business. And my Instagram is my business. I've gone all in with the Instagram stuff, the TikTok stuff. You know, I am a content creator for better and for worse, and I love it. But this is one of the things I have to contend with are the rampant kind of copycat accounts out there who want to make a quick buck and ride a trend wave and you know, fair enough, but also not fair enough. It's a weird sensation to start a trend too, like a pretty big one, and then to have to deal with seeking credit for certain things. There's also the other side of it to where the whole ethics behind how AIs are trained definitely riles a few feathers and is one of the primary reasons why AI artists get so much hate online is because in some cases they are using tools that were unethically trained and therefore their own outputs could be argued against them as the original artist. But I really choose to see it differently. I think people have very different definitions of what art is and what an artist is, radically different. I think not only the result can constitute art, but also the process itself. And I think that's left out of the conversation quite often. And yeah, it's an interesting thing. It's also interesting that for the first time in my life, I have been wide. You know, I've always kind of been the artist of the family, but now that I've finally adopted AI into my tool set, I am for the first time being, you know, widely denied the label of artist. People just love online to tell me that I'm not an artist. And it's just an interesting phenomenon. It's an interesting thing to go through psychologically, but it's fine. I know that they're wrong. I know that I am an artist. Their attacks only come from a place of jealousy and resentment, nothing justified. But the complexity in the matter is that they actually kind of have a point. There's a nugget of truth in their vitriol beyond the ad hominem attacks and the needless cruelty. These people do bring up a decent point, which is that the tools being used are not always ethically trained, and that is certainly an issue. But I don't think that should be used against the person using the tool. Maybe it should be used against the person developing the tool, but not the end user that's just using it to create their own fun little thing. Leave those people alone, you know? Who am I harming by just uploading fun little videos that like I came up with in the middle of the night for fun? I will admit that as I've been an AI artist for a few years now, my definition of art has changed and has stretched to accommodate like more possible definitions, if that makes sense. I used to have a more conservative definition of art, let's say, but now that I'm doing what I'm doing, it's causing me to see things in a different light, a little more open-minded, if you will. That's not to say that I accept everything as art now. I still think that when you duct tape a banana to a wall, you can't call that art per se. I'd have to draw the line somewhere. And maybe if somebody literally just types in Apple into Midjourney and takes the first result blindly without even comparing any of them and just passing that off as art, I mean, yeah, that's definitely also pushing the boundaries. And I don't think I would call that art either. But it's a spectrum. And especially as it relates to AI, this whole art definition is a spectrum. I really measure it by the amount of effort you put into a works, regardless of what that works is. Like some of my videos take really long to make, and that's a labor of love, and it's absolutely an artistic process. I can't see how it wouldn't be. I'm using the same parts of my brain to create it as I use when I create other forms of art, like drawings and stuff. I'm creating art. I'm being creative. It's just kind of semantics, I guess, but very much worth discussing because there's not a lot of nuance in these talks. It's kind of people shouting at each other from opposite ends of a canyon, and there's really very few bridges being built between the two camps. It's quite frustrating because I think both camps can really see eye to eye on certain issues. I guess you could really say that about most things in this world, couldn't you? But certainly, especially about AI art, there's so much more nuance that's left out of the talks. And that's because it doesn't get views, it doesn't get clicks. And hopefully videos like this will start to change that. It's almost like it's the attacks on AI artists online, it almost feels coordinated because they all repeat very similar epithets and phrases like pick up a pencil, learn to draw. It's so tired. It's like, can you at least come up with some fresh ideas? It sounds like you guys are all coming from a bot farm. You're all repeating the same slogans. It's very petty. It's all very petty. And on some level, I'm petty for bringing it up and dwelling on it, I guess, by fueling the fire. I guess that's just how it goes. I think the great takeaway from this video, if I could prescribe it, would be to treat yourself as an artist, regardless of what you're doing. If you feel that you're using the artistic side of your brain and you're really diving into a creative process, then that is art and you're an artist. And accept that, own that label and walk proudly with it, regardless of what the critiques are going to shout and throw at you. They don't matter. I mean, they can certainly critique the art itself, but when people start to like degrade your character and say you're not what you claim to be, and this is the reason why, they don't deserve a seat at the table. They don't deserve a voice, frankly. If they're just interested in tearing you down and calling your work fraudulent or counterfeit, they don't deserve a seat at the table. That's kind of the moral of the story here. And that's that. Take care, everyone.